Yeah, I have said that it is a question that we all need to answer sincerely. Whether the boarding system we operate in the colleges is something that is relevant and we have to continue with it. Whether the feeding system, the dining hall system we have is something that we need to continue. Whether the uniform that the students wear is something that we have to continue. And I will not be here to prefer a solution. That is why I'm saying that we need the broader society to come round for us to have a conversation around it, so that what the consensus are, we'll go ahead to get authorities to, as it were, give a clear policy direction on that.
Mr. Hima encourages Ghanaians to participate in the discussion in order to identify the greatest form structure for everyone's benefit. He also addresses the subject of students' allowance, stating that the funds used to pay students can be used to fund facilities such as science laboratories, lecture halls, and accommodation. He believes that while students will protest, they will eventually recognize the importance of directing such funds into development.
The election was about colleges of education. Our reinstate allowance, our council allowance. We don't want that. We don't want that. If you look at the amount of money that they have to pay to the students, I mean, these monies can go into procuring or giving us infrastructure, science laboratories, lecture halls, decent accommodation, and all of these things for the students, so that the students are allowed to access student loan just like any other tertiary students in the country. I think for anything to start, the students will kick against it. But if they sit, reflect, and get to know that at the end of the day, that money will go into giving them infrastructure that they stand beneficiaries and all of that, I think they will buy into it. As I said, it is for all of us, the society, to get involved in this conversation so that we'll know which is the best way to go.
Due to the interruption of academic work caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, he pleads for motivation for teachers who must teach throughout the year without a break.
It affected everything in the colleges of education, because around that time we had to do blended teaching, where we relied on tools, that is, we relied on internet and other tools to be able to teach them, digital tools to be able to teach them while they were at home. And when the thing was eased somehow, some of the students had to come, whilst others were at home and they were receiving tuition. The policymakers saw that it had its own challenges and decided that students should be in school. Now, students in school, you realize that the supported teaching, which we used to call teaching practice, is what is giving the new curriculum new phase. It's not just about 4 years. It's supposed to be practical oriented, so that when the student comes to school, he does that from the first year up to the last year when he completes. Now, during the COVID time, all these things were not done. When they came back to school, we had to compress. For instance, what ought to have been done within a semester, we had to do all of that within 2 weeks. When the basic schools started streaming, we had to do that within 2 weeks, one term. And then for the particular semester in which we were in, we had to do 4 weeks. So we realized that things done that way will not achieve the effect that it was intended to achieve. Now, as a result of this situation, of the students having to be in school and all of that, what it means now, what the implication it has on the teachers, is that we are having to teach throughout the year. There is no break. And this is against any known labor law where people have to work throughout the year. So indeed, we have initiated conversation. We do not want to, the system has already suffered. We don't want to activate anything like strike. Strike doesn't help. We have already started conversation with our administrators, the principals, and in the coming weeks, we're going to meet with GTEC to have a conversation around it, so that we'll see how best to compensate the teachers who have to stay on and teach for 12 months within the year.
Another point of discussion at the conference is the daily student feeding at the colleges. Mr. Hima calls for a review of the 6.5 CD daily feeding for each student at the colleges.
Even though we are there with the principals in the colleges and the students, because it doesn't lie within our jurisdiction. We have not been aware of even this detail. So hearing that principals have to use 60 to 50 pesos to feed adults 3 times, breakfast, lunch, and supper, I think I need to commend them. They are magicians. But I can see that there is pretext. And I think that this pretext and hypocrisy has to stop. But the people who are doing that for 5 years now, they've had to rely on the same amount, 60 to 50 pesos. Let's look at the inflation, the rice, the oil, those things that this amount could buy in 5 years' time. Can it do same today? So if we really want to feed the students, we should feed them well on campus.
The goal of the 2-day conference is to create a network of researchers, leaders and policy makers who will be able to collaborate to identify innovative solutions to Ghana's educational challenges.
The educator or teacher must be